I was folding laundry in our bedroom while our twins, Avery and Elias, were napping. We were just 2 weeks away from our wedding. The invites had been sent, the dress altered, and I was mentally juggling the seating chart. Everything felt like it was moving fast, almost too fast. Then I heard it. He didn't realize his phone had answered a call on speaker when he tossed it on the bed. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the words hit me like a freight train. "Look, Mom, I don't want to marry her," he said. "I never did. I was going to leave when she told me about the pregnancy, but you both made it clear I'd be cut off if I didn't do the right thing. So I did." A pause. His mother replied coldly, "You're doing what's necessary. This isn't about love. It's about responsibility and legacy. Don't be foolish. You're not marrying her for romance. You're marrying her for control." And just like that, I knew. Everything was a lie. The proposal, the support, the nursery plans. It was all engineered by fear, manipulation, and money. I stood frozen, holding one of Elias' tiny onesies, as the truth crushed me. That night, I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I lay beside him silently, replaying every moment with new eyes. I wasn't the love of his life. I was the obligation he resented. The next morning, I watched him pour cereal for Avery with the same casual tenderness as always. But now, every gesture felt artificial, like a role he was playing in someone else's script. I couldn't unhear those words. "I don't want to marry her." "Everything okay?" he asked, catching me staring. I nodded. Lied. "Yeah, just tired." Inside, my heart was unraveling. The twins were giggling, smearing banana across their cheeks. They were innocent. They didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of something so calculated. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake him and ask how he could fake his way through our life. But I had to think. I had to plan. That day, while he was at work, I called my mom. I told her everything. She was quiet for a moment and then asked the only question that mattered. "What do you want to do now?" I didn't answer her right away, because I didn't know. But I knew I couldn't walk down that aisle in 2 weeks pretending I hadn't heard what I did. I wasn't going to be anyone's charity case. And my children were not going to be raised in a home built on resentment. That night, I pretended again. I smiled through dinner. I laughed when he made a joke about wedding stress. But I watched him closer now, noticed how he never really looked me in the eye for long, how he never brought up the future unless I initiated it. When he went to bed early, I stayed up. I opened his laptop. I knew his password. It was our daughter's middle name. There were emails, threads between him and his father. Cold, business-like conversations masked as family concern. One line stood out, written by his dad. "Once she signs the prenup, you're safe. Then we take steps to ensure your custody and our control of the trust. Don't get emotional." I closed the laptop. My hands were shaking. This wasn't just about a broken engagement anymore. This was a war plan. A war for control over me, over my kids, over our lives. That was the moment I knew I couldn't just walk away quietly. I wasn't just a woman who got lied to. I was a mother, and I would fight like one. I waited until Saturday morning. I made sure the twins were with my mom. I needed to have this conversation without little eyes watching. He was sitting on the couch, scrolling on his phone. I stood in front of him and said calmly, "The wedding's off." He blinked up at me, startled. "What are you talking about?" I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, "I heard your call with your mom. The one where you said you didn't want to marry me. The one where your parents talked about controlling everything, including custody of our kids." His face went pale. "You weren't supposed to hear that." That told me everything. Not, I didn't mean it. Not, it's not what you think. Just that I wasn't supposed to hear it. "I'm not marrying someone who's been bullied into fatherhood," I said. "And I'm definitely not signing that prenup your father sent to your email. I know about it." He stood, eyes wide. "It's not like that, okay?" I was scared. My parents were threatening to cut me off. I didn't know what else to do. "So you lied?" I asked. "You let me build a life with you based on pressure and guilt?" He had no answer. I picked up my keys and said, "I'm staying with my parents for now. We'll talk custody through the courts." He reached for me, desperate. "Don't do this. Don't tear our family apart." But it wasn't me. He did that the moment he decided I was an obligation instead of a partner. I moved out the next morning. My parents helped me pack while he stood by the door, arms crossed, jaw tight like he was the one being betrayed. He didn't say a word until I was strapping the twins into their car seats. "You're overreacting," he said flatly. "You think you're the only one who's scared? I didn't choose this either." I paused and looked at him, really looked. And in that moment, I saw a boy still tied to his parents' approval. A man who had every chance to fight for his family and chose silence instead. "I did choose this," I said, keeping my voice steady. I chose to keep the babies. I chose to raise them. I chose you when I didn't have to. And you chose to lie. He scoffed, defensive now. My parents were just trying to protect me. No, I said. They were trying to own me. And you let them. Then I closed the door. The next few weeks were chaos. My phone buzzed nonstop. Calls from him. From his mother. Even his father once, who left me a chilling voicemail saying I was jeopardizing their family name. I got a lawyer. I filed for full custody. And that's when the real battle began. He hired his own attorney, paid for, no doubt, by the same parents who saw my children as part of their estate portfolio. They contested everything, demanded joint custody, even tried to claim I was emotionally unstable. I showed up to every court date with my head held high. I documented everything. The call, the prenup, the pressure, the emails. And most importantly, I showed up with love. Not anger, not vengeance. Just a mother's love for her kids, and proof that I would never let them grow up in a house where they were treated like chess pieces. Our first mediation session felt more like a business negotiation than a conversation about two small children. His lawyer spoke for him. Mine spoke for me. He wouldn't even look at me. Just sat there stiffly in his designer suit, bought with money from the people who had poisoned everything between us. They pushed for 50-50 custody, supervised visitation for me, said I acted impulsively by taking the kids. My lawyer, God bless her, shut it down with one simple line. Acting to protect her children after discovering she was being deceived and manipulated is not impulsive. It's maternal instinct. I showed the judge screenshots of his parents' emails. The pressure, the manipulation, the prenup that would have given them control over everything, including my future income and decision-making about the kids. They tried to discredit me, saying I was acting out of spite, that I was bitter the wedding didn't happen. But they couldn't fake what was real. I was present. Every appointment, every night feeding, every teething tantrum, I was there. He wasn't. He was in meetings with his father, on golf trips with his mother, working late, or so he claimed. I was the one holding the family together. And now I was the one trying to keep it from falling apart even more, for the sake of the children, not my pride. The judge didn't make a decision that day. But as we left the courtroom, his mother hissed at me in the hallway. You'll regret this. You're nothing without us. I smiled, calm, cold, and honest. I was nothing with you. Now I'm finally free. The next few weeks were exhausting. Between court dates, diaper changes, and trying to work part-time remotely, I barely slept. But something shifted in me. I wasn't mourning the breakup anymore. I was mourning the illusion. The life I thought I had. The love I believed was real. But the deeper I leaned into my new reality, the stronger I became. The twins thrived in our routine. They laughed more, slept better. My parents helped when they could, and a neighbor I barely knew offered to watch the kids twice a week so I could breathe. Then something happened I didn't expect. He showed up, unannounced, uninvited. He stood on my doorstep holding a stuffed giraffe for Elias and a bouquet of wilted flowers. I miss them, he said quietly. Can I come in? I didn't open the screen door. You miss them, or the idea of them? His eyes dropped. I don't know. And that was the most honest thing he'd said in months. He sat on the porch, and I let him talk. Not for him, but for the kids. Maybe one day I could explain this moment to them with clarity. He confessed that his parents were furious, that they'd threatened to disinherit him if he didn't fight for full custody, that they blamed me for ruining their family legacy. And then he said the words that made me feel both sad and relieved. I don't think I ever really knew how to love you. I just knew how to need your love. I stood there silently for a long time. Then I said, you don't get to come back and play house now. You had love. You traded it for approval. He nodded, tears in his eyes. And then he left. That night, I finally slept. Not because it was over, but because I knew I was over it. A week later, I received an email from his lawyer. A revised custody agreement. No more fighting for joint custody. No more demands. It was a surrender. He was giving up his parental rights. At first, I didn't believe it. I called my lawyer immediately. She reviewed the document, read every line twice, then looked at me with a mix of shock and sympathy. It's legitimate, she said. He's walking away. I should have felt victorious. But I didn't. I felt hollow. He was giving up not just on me, but on them. Avery and Elias. His own flesh and blood. I sat on the kitchen floor and cried harder than I had in months. Not because I wanted him back. Not because I wanted to co-parent with a man who had let manipulation guide his every choice, but because no child deserves a parent who gives up. That night, I watched them sleep. Elias had kicked off his blanket again, and Avery was clinging to her stuffed bunny like it was her lifeline. I promised them something in a whisper. You will never feel like you weren't wanted. Not by me. And that's when the grief turned to clarity. This wasn't just the end of a toxic relationship. It was the beginning of a life I would build on my terms. For us, signing the final paperwork was surreal. The courtroom was quiet. He didn't show up. Just his lawyer, a few pages, and a ballpoint pen that felt heavier than it should have. I signed next to the line that made it official: sole custody granted. No visitation. No shared holidays. No legal obligations from him. The judge looked at me gently and said, "You understand the implications?" I nodded. I do. Afterwards, I sat alone in my car with the papers in my lap. It was a strange kind of grief, like mourning someone who was still alive. He wasn't dead. He had just chosen to disappear from our lives without a fight. But somehow, it was also freeing. I wasn't sharing anymore. Not my decisions. Not my time. Not my children. We were truly ours now. I went home, made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for lunch, and danced in the living room with the twins to a playlist of old love songs, most of which I could finally listen to without crying. For the first time in months, I smiled and actually meant it. No more lies. No more pressure. No more pretending. Just me, two toddlers who thought blueberries were currency, and the quiet power of starting over. A month later, I signed the lease on a 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood. It wasn't fancy, but it had light. Big windows. A tiny balcony that overlooked a dog park. More importantly, it was mine. I let the twins help me unpack, which mostly meant pulling clothes out of boxes and giggling hysterically. I didn't stop them. Let them play. Let them feel at home. I hung their drawings on the fridge like art gallery pieces. Put up fairy lights in their room. Bought secondhand furniture and painted it with pastel colors. Every piece of that home told a story of survival, of taking back control, of making peace from broken promises. My mom came by often to help. She hugged me one night while I was scrubbing crayon off the wall and said, "You look lighter." I smiled. I think I am. No more wedding countdowns. No more silent tension. Just messy, beautiful real life. One evening, as I tucked Avery in, she sleepily mumbled, "Mommy happy now?" I froze for a second. Then I whispered, "Yeah, baby. Mommy's happy now." Because I was. Not the kind of happy that comes from fairy tales or picture-perfect love stories, but the kind you fight for. The kind you build with scraped knees, tear-streaked cheeks, and a whole lot of stubborn hope. It had been 3 months of calm. The twins were growing fast. Elias had started calling everything with wheels of room, and Avery insisted on dressing herself, often in clashing colors and glitter boots. And then, out of nowhere, he called. His name lit up my phone like a ghost. I stared at it until it stopped ringing. He called again, left a voicemail. I hesitated, then played it. His voice was strained. "I'm not asking to come back. I think I made a mistake. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I think about them. Every day." For a moment, I felt that familiar ache in my chest. But then I looked over at Avery, spinning in circles in her mismatched outfit, and Elias, carefully placing crackers in a line across the coffee table. And I realized something. You can regret leaving, but that doesn't mean you deserve to return. I didn't call him back. Some doors don't need to be slammed. They just need to stay shut. Instead, I wrote a letter, never sent, where I poured it all out. The pain, the betrayal, the loneliness, the strength. And then I tucked it in a drawer like a buried memory. Because he wasn't the ending anymore. He was just a plot twist in a much bigger story. And that story was still being written by me. Life moved forward. It didn't ask permission. I started freelancing again, graphic design work from home, balancing deadlines between nap schedules and snack time. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Every morning, I brewed coffee, packed a tiny lunchbox, and walked the twins to a nearby daycare a few days a week. It gave me hours of silence, and in that silence, I rediscovered something I didn't realize I'd lost. Myself. Not the mother version. Not the almost wife version. Not the girl who tried to hold a fractured relationship together with hope and denial. Just me. One afternoon, while I waited for the twins to come out of daycare, another mom struck up a conversation. Her name was Dana. She had twin boys too, older. Her husband had walked out when they were babies. "I remember the first time I had to unclog a drain by myself," she laughed. "Cried the whole time. Then felt like a warrior when I fixed it." We talked for almost an hour. It felt good. Not like therapy. More like finally being understood without explanation. That weekend, Dana and her kids came over. We ordered pizza. Our kids smeared tomato sauce on everything. For once, I didn't panic over the mess. That night, after the kids were asleep and the house was quiet, I stood on the tiny balcony with a glass of tea and let myself feel something I hadn't allowed since the day I walked out. Pride. Not because I had it all figured out, not even close, but because I had faced something soul-crushing, and I was still here, still standing, still trying. And more than anything, because I was no longer letting someone else's weakness define my worth. This wasn't the life I planned, but it was turning into something real, something strong, something beautiful. I hadn't heard from him in weeks. After that voicemail, he vanished again, like he always did when responsibility got too heavy. Then, one Tuesday morning, I got a thick envelope in the mail. No return address. But I knew. I could feel it. I opened it slowly. Inside were legal documents. A formal statement of full termination of his parental rights. Not just custody, but any and all claims to the children. It was signed, witnessed, stamped, final. There was also a short note in his handwriting. They deserve better than a father who had to be convinced to stay. Tell them I'm sorry when they're old enough to ask. See, I didn't cry. I expected to. But there were no tears. Just a strange wave of clarity. This man would always be a shadow in their origin story, but never in their day-to-day lives. And that was for the best. I folded the note, placed it in a small memory box, along with their hospital bracelets, first baby photos, and the ultrasound I once thought would bring us together. Then I did something symbolic. I deleted his number. Not in anger, not out of spite, but because there was no longer a place for him here. Not in my phone, not in my plans, and certainly not in the future I was shaping for my children. That evening, I cooked spaghetti with the twins. Avery smeared sauce across her cheeks like war paint. Elias dumped Parmesan like snow. We laughed so hard, my stomach hurt. And that's when it hit me. We were whole. Not because we were a perfect family, but because we were honest. There were no secrets left. No pretending. No roles being played. Just me and them. And that was enough. More than enough. It's been a year now. The twins just turned 3. Avery insists she's a big girl now, and Elias keeps asking if he can have a beard like Grandpa. We're in a better apartment, still modest, but brighter, cozier, and filled with laughter. I painted the walls myself during nap times. The living room smells like cookies half the time and crayons the other half. I started a small design studio from home. Clients are slow but steady. Dana and I now take turns watching each other's kids when deadlines pile up. Some nights I still think about how close I came to marrying someone who never truly wanted to stay. But instead of pain, it feels like a lesson now. Not every heartbreak is meant to destroy you. Some are meant to wake you up. Avery asked me recently why she doesn't have a daddy like some of the other kids. I paused, then knelt beside her. Because Mommy decided that only people who love you fully get to stay in your life. She looked up at me, thoughtful, and nodded like she understood more than I gave her credit for. Then she said, "But I have you." And that was everything. Moral of the story. Love isn't just about staying. It's about choosing to stay every day, even when it's hard. Sometimes walking away is the bravest way to protect what matters most. And sometimes, the family you build from the ruins is stronger than the one you thought you lost. We may not be traditional, but we're real. And that makes us unbreakable. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional journeys and real-life inspired stories. Your support means everything.